Hello and welcome to Narana IAS Academy. We are continuing our series of daily news analysis. And today we are going to head up with 5 important articles from The Hindu and Indian Express as part of our daily news analysis. And before we start, we have a quote for you. Just keep moving forward. Even if you're having so many questions, so many doubts about yourself, whether you can crack this exam or not, whether you're in a position to clear the prelims, the upcoming prelims or not, don't think about anything. The thoughts will keep on coming, keep on changing, keep on evolving. Just do your action and just keep moving forward. That's the way you can clear it. Okay. Now, as far as the admissions at Narayana IAS Academy are concerned, the admission for 1 year course and 2 year course both are open. The details about these courses are given on the website. You can use the QR code also directly to reach out to the website. All these details are provided there, and here also you will get all these details. Okay. Now, moving ahead, we have 5 articles for today. The first article is related to multilateralism. Now, the author of this article is saying that there is an assault on multilateralism, and this multilateralism is not working at this moment in the world. So, we'll understand what is this exactly, how it came into picture, everything. Okay. Then the second article, this one is related to AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act. So recently there was a meeting, a review meeting held by Union Home Ministry, in which the army chief or the army has said that we need to add some more areas of Manipur under AFSPA. So we'll understand what is AFSPA, what are the powers given to armed forces under this particular act. Then the third article, inflation going up in south as in South India due to migration from poorer states. So this article is claiming that people from northern parts of India or the eastern parts of India, they are coming to southern part of India, and because of which, because of this migration, inflation is increasing in these states. So very interesting study by State Bank of India. We'll study this. Then the challenge of policing digital giants. Now this article is specifically talking about Competition Commission of India. So lastly, there was a punishment given to Meta, that is Facebook, Instagram holding company Meta. So they were fined by Competition Commission of India. So we'll understand why such issues are coming up many a times. What is the need of this Competition Commission of India? What are Indian laws saying about all these things? And the last article is about reciprocal tariffs. So Donald Trump or the America has decided to impose reciprocal tariff on India, and they are applicable from April 2nd. So these are the 5 articles that we are considering or that we are going to study today. So let's start with the first article of the day, that is the assault on multilateralism and international law. Now this article specifically is important for your GS paper 2 international relations, where we include international institutions, agencies, everything. Okay. As well as you should have a brief idea about multilateralism from prelims perspective. Now you can look at this mains question asked in the year 2018. What are the key areas of reform if WTO has to survive in the present context of trade war, especially keeping in mind the interests of India? Now, when we talk about multilateralism, then WTO is an example of multilateralism. Right now, WTO is not in a position to work in the normal way. The normal functioning of WTO is getting affected because multilateralism overall is not working at this moment. So it is, this WTO is just one example. The core idea is multilateralism. So that's the reason I've shown this question, so that you can understand the importance of this topic that we are going to study. Okay. Now what's happening? Why it is in news? Because since the time President Donald Trump has got elected in United States once again, and he gives a talk, he claims that he's going to make America great again. So if you look at his policies, those policies are somewhat isolationist. So he wants to isolate America. He is not interested in leading the entire world. Rather, they want to focus on America only. And here we see one more new issue coming into picture, where at the global stage, we don't see any leadership. At this moment, there is no leader in the world. No country is leading entire world. So what we are observing is countries who used to collaborate, who used to cooperate, they are not cooperating. There is tussle going on, there is less cooperation. And that's why we are saying that multilateralism is getting affected, or there is a shift. There is a shift in the global governance, which is exactly away from the multilateralism. So, first of all, let's understand what do we mean by multilateralism. You see, you must have heard this term unilateral. When you say unilateral, uni means one. So if one country is taking one particular action on its own without taking anyone into confidence, let's say America suddenly decides that they're going to attack any country. Let's say they decided they'll attack Afghanistan once again. They had attacked once. They attacked Iraq. That was unilateral action. Without asking anyone, they decided to go ahead. Or let's say you have this term called bilateral. So here the term bi means two. So when two countries are involved, we use this term bilateral. So India and US are having a talk or going for an agreement. We call it bilateral agreement, where two parties are involved. But when we use the term multilateral, so it involves multiple countries. That means it will not be one or two countries, but multiple, three or more than three. So whenever there is a kind of cooperation which is going on between three or more than three countries, so how they will cooperate? They will build an institution. Let's say if you look at United Nations, right? United Nations is having so many countries. 180, 190 countries are there, let's say. So many countries came together, they are cooperating under this umbrella of United Nations. Or you talk about World Trade Organization. So all these are examples of multilateralism where countries will cooperate. They will build some structures, they will build some institutions, some kind of governance will happen. There will be some rules, there will be some agreements, and there will be some regulation by that institution. Okay. So if this is happening, then it is multilateralism. If this is not happening, that means we are moving away from multilateralism. Let's say all the countries decide that now we will not listen to anybody, will not have any agreement, we'll do whatever we want to. Then that's not multilateralism. Clear? So when we talk about multilateralism, we have some principles that we follow at the world stage. For example, sovereign equality of all states. So all the countries, no matter whether they are small or they are big, they are economically very minuscule or they are economically very powerful. All these countries who are sovereign, they will be considered as equal. Second, there will be a rules-based global order. So there is an order in the world, but that order will not be dominated by one country's whims and fancies. Or let's say China suddenly wants to take control of a country or a locality or an island. If we are allowing China to do that, then there is no rule. First, we made a rule that no country is going to attack any other country. So that means there are some rules. So if the world order is maintained wherein every country is following rules, then that is a rules based world order. Then the next principle that we follow is consensus and dialogue over coercion. Coercion means you're putting pressure, you're using your hard power. So let's say America might use its military power or its economic power using sanctions. They may use their technological power. So when you coerce, when you put pressure on other country to do what they want to, that is coercion. But when it comes to multilateralism, we don't go for such hard tactics. We go for soft tactics. So let's say America wants to do something. They will take other countries into confidence. They will go for consensus building. They'll go for dialogues and negotiations. Okay. Then shared responsibility and collective security. So whatever problem the world is facing, all the countries will come together and they will share their responsibilities. So let's say we are dealing with climate change or we are dealing with a new pandemic. So all countries will share the responsibility. Some countries who are economically at a good position, they'll take more responsibility. Those who are not that powerful or not economically at a good position, they'll take less responsibilities. And there will be collective security. Now this is very important. When you look at United Nations, that's a good example of collective security. So United Nations is saying that we have a group of 100, 200 countries and all these countries will be secured. They will be provided security by the United Nations. If any country attacks any of the member of United Nations, then United Nations will interfere and try to resolve that issue. So their security will be ensured. Then there is inclusivity, justice and fair representation. So when we say we are in a multilateral institute, we are moving towards multilateralism. So there will be fairness and justice. Inclusivity means you are including everyone. Every country has some representation over there. And the representation is fair. It's not like one country who is very much dominant, economically powerful, politically powerful, militarily powerful. That means you'll give them more representation. No. In multilateral institutions, we try to have fair kind of representation. So these are the core principles, and on the basis of these principles, we build multilateral institutions for the world to cooperate, for more countries to cooperate. I hope you understand. And I said the examples include your United Nations, World Trade Organization, GATT, etc., etc., or even that World Health Organization. So at the time of pandemic, we were very much dependent on World Health Organization, right? So that's an organization which shows multilateralism. Now, how this multilateralism came into picture? If we want to go in the history, so before World War, the scenario was different. Especially we are talking about World War II. So before this World War II, there was an organization built or an idea came into picture that we can have a multilateral institute. And at that time, this was named as League of Nations in the year 1920. Now, although League of Nations is nothing but the precursor of United Nations, before UN, this League of Nations came. But this institution could not survive or could not sustain. It failed. Failed because there were many reasons. For example, it was not that inclusive. See, at this moment, if you create a new United Nations and it does not include America or China or India or any such larger country, then do you think that that organization will remain relevant? No. So that was the same reason for League of Nations. It was not inclusive. Some countries like America was not part of it. Germany and the USSR, initially they were not included in it. And there were many problems, some operational issues. For example, when you had to take some decision, you had to take everyone into confidence. Now it becomes difficult sometimes when it comes to decision making. So many challenges were there. It failed, but at least the idea came into picture. Later on the same lines, a new institution was built, that is your United Nations. That was done after World War II because World War II shows that all the countries were not cooperating. They were not cooperating, and that's why we saw World War II. So countries thought that now we don't want any such world war. So to stop such wars, it's better all the countries should come together, they should cooperate, they should have discussions. So that's the reason we built this United Nations in the year 1945. Then these institutions like Bretton Woods institutions, we call them IMF, World Bank. Then this GATT was made. Later on, GATT became World Trade Organization in the year 1995. And in the 21st century, many other forums also came into picture. For example, we have BRICS, SCO, G20, etc., etc. All this shows very clearly that multilateralism was at rise since World War II. Since World War II, this multilateralism has been increasing, it's expanding, it's growing. Now, is it really important? Obviously, especially considering the angle of World War, we can say that any multilateral institution is very, very important for the world governance. See, at the world level, we do not have any government as such. So we have made some efforts for that. Now see, what could be the significance of such multilateral institutions? First, we can resolve conflicts. We can go for peace. So till now, since the formation of this United Nations, till now we say that 87,000 personnels were deployed as peacekeepers. 71 UN peacekeeping missions have been deployed so that we can resolve crises, so that we can resolve conflicts. And you see, there is one thing that United Nations has done for sure successfully, that is we have not seen any world war since the last World War II. So UN was successful. Till now it was successful. Now we don't know whether we are heading towards a new world war or not. But till now it was. Second, for global economic stability. So it's not just about militaristic war. Sometimes there is economic instability which can lead to a big crisis. So IMF and World Bank, these institutions are made. They help you when it comes to any kind of economic instability or crisis. For example, in 2008, when there was this global depression, at that time these institutions came and they helped many countries. Then when it comes to global public good, so you talk about climate change, you talk about health, there are many other dimensions. Even when it comes to your rights, or we call it human rights, for all this these multilateral institutions are helping. And then comes your sustainable development goal. At the world level, we see poverty, extensive poverty. Now, because all these multilateral institutions are continuously working, their institutions are working, they're funding, they're coming up with new programs, we have reduced poverty substantially from the world. So in 1990, poverty, global poverty was 36%, and now we have reduced it to 8.44% in 2019. All these things clearly show that yes, these multilateral institutions are really important for the world. But what's happening right now? Right now, what's happening is we are going against it. So right now there is rise of unilateralism. For example, USA is taking actions on its own, right? So coming out from Paris Agreement, WHO, UNHRC, putting sanction on this ICC, International Criminal Court. All these actions of United States show that they are preferring unilateralism and not multilateralism. Then there's this Brexit which took place, that is also unilateral action by Britain. Then the trade war which is going on between US and China, or even this reciprocal tariff that US has imposed on many countries including India. This also shows that countries, or especially USA, is not preferring multilateralism. They're ready to go against WTO laws, WTO norms. Then we are observing since few years there is a rise of regionalism. Some regional groupings are emerging. For example, there is this RCEP group, there is Quad group, and there are many other groups, smaller groups, which are emerging to counter the multilateralism at the world level. And then USA's actions like defunding multilateral bodies. So USA is a major player when it comes to funding United Nations, and now they have decided they're going to cut their amount. The amount which they were spending on United Nations, they are reducing it, or they are cutting it. So all these are recent trends showing an assault on multilateralism. Now what will happen? What will happen because of this? At the global level, there will be some impact. At the regional or national level, there will be some impact. So if we talk about global level, first of all, it will weaken the international rule-based order. Already we have made some rule-based order. We have made institutions have made some rules, some agreements are already there. Every country has ratified that. And now you are saying, I don't agree with it. So you are weakening this order which is already established. Second, erosion of cooperation on climate change and health crisis. So if countries are doing such things, whatever USA is doing, they're not ready to support whatever UN is doing or WHO is doing in terms of climate change or any pandemic, etc. So there won't be any cooperation further. If USA says we are cutting the funds, other countries will say the same. It undermines human right framework, obviously. And then fragmentation of global governance structure. So overall, the global governance will somehow get reduced or will not work in a proper way. Now, if we talk about regional and national impact, so there will be more trade wars, more tariff barriers, and there will be economic uncertainty. So suddenly USA will put some extra tariffs on your country will put some extra tariffs, such wars will go on, inflation will increase in their country also, your country will also. Suddenly what will happen, we don't know. There is no stability. Then destabilization of fragile regions, especially the regions which are already fragile, already at risk. For example, you look at Middle East, it's already at crisis. See, since years we are observing Middle East is not stable. Okay, and now what is happening? All these old fractures are now gaining traction or are now becoming more unstable. So the Israel-Palestine issue, Ukraine-Russia issue, all these issues, even the Taiwan-China issue, all these are re-emerging. These fragile regions are becoming unstable. There will be decline in global leadership credibility. So as I said, there is no leader at this moment at the global forum. Leader as in I'm talking about a country. And rise of protectionism and regional blocks, right? Which we are observing anyway. America is saying America first. So India might say India first. So there will be protectionism more, there will be regional blocks which will gain more traction rather than the multilateral forums or international forums. Clear? Now there is one ethical dimension involved when it comes to the shift away from multilateralism. The first dimension is, what about global justice against the power politics? Right now, whatever we are observing is the power politics. US is clearly showing that I am not going to support United Nations or any multilateral institution. I'm the powerful. I'll do whatever I want to. I have to sustain my interests, my national interests. So this global politics or power politics is going on, especially between US and China, because China is anyway challenging American hegemony. Earlier, it was only USA who was the most powerful country, politically, economically, militarily, technologically. But right now, it is China who is directly showing or giving challenge to US hegemony. So you see, economically, China is way ahead now. Militarily also, they are developing, they are becoming better. Technologically also, they are showing that we are not way far from you. So all this is visible. And it's not just China, there are many other countries, or what we call them as emerging countries or emerging powers. They are also part of this power politics. So this power politics is going on. But what about global justice? What about the smaller countries? So when climate change happens, that is going to affect more to these poorer countries than just one powerful country. And when the funding is not made by a powerful country, that affects the world justice or global justice. Then rule of law and accountability. There should be respect for international legal system. Just imagine if our constitution or our laws, they don't get respect from the citizens of our country. How will the system work? We respect constitution, we respect all the laws, we respect all the institutions. That's why system is running very smoothly. But that is not happening at the world level right now. Especially the most powerful country is not ready to accept the rule of law. That's the problem. Then utilitarianism versus rights-based approach. This we can apply over here. What utilitarianism will say? Maximum happiness of maximum people or maximum countries. So if we are taking one action which is helping maximum number of people, let's say United Nations is having 190 countries, out of which 180 countries are benefiting from one action, 10 are not benefiting. Utilitarianism will say that this is a right action, no issues. But what will rights based approach will say? It will say no matter what, you have to ensure that every country's right, every country's dignity is respected. So somewhere, countries like USA, they are just looking at things from utilitarian perspective. They're just looking at their national interest, and there's no right-based approach at the world level. And at last, This will all lead to erosion of trust. So countries who used to trust others, each others, that trust will be reduced, that will be eroded. And when there won't be any trust among countries, then that means this will lead towards a scenario wherein countries will be suspicious of one another and they might attack anyone. That might lead to global wars, world wars, or many other tussles. Okay. So, if all these challenges are there, all these problems are there, we should do something. So, we should reform. We should reform our institutions. We should make some changes. First of all, what we need to do, we need to rebalance the representation in the multilateral institutions. One of the reasons why United Nations is not able to work properly at this moment, why you're observing this Israel-Palestine war, or whatever Hamas war is going on, or this Russia-Ukraine war is going on, because United Nations has failed to resolve this conflict. And why United Nations has failed? Because those who are representing United Nations, those who are at the permanent position, or what we call as permanent members of United Nations Security Council, that means those who are governing United Nations, they do not truly represent United Nations at this moment, because the structure of United Nations is somewhat of World War II time. Right now it doesn't represent, because India is not part of the permanent member. India deserves to be, considering the power politics of the world. Similarly, many other countries deserve to be part of it. They are not. So we can rebalance this representation, first of all, whether it is UN, whether it is IMF, World Bank, everywhere we can rebalance that. Second, we can go for technological governance frameworks. So at this moment, new technological challenges are coming up. For example, in terms of AI, cyber security, digital trade. For all this, we need some global treaties. We need some global frameworks acceptable to every country in the world. Then we need some crisis response mechanism at the world level. See, the last time we saw COVID-19 pandemic, we were very much concerned. WHO could not handle it that much properly. But we have no other mechanism except the mechanism of WHO. WHO, not WTO. So here we are saying we need something like a crisis response mechanism in case there is a new pandemic again, in case of this climate crisis for which no country is prepared at this moment. Then transparency and accountability. All these countries, they have to come together and they have to ensure that public money which is being used over here, that is transparently used. Accountability of every unit, every organization is ensured, and financial sustainability is ensured. So right now USA is not funding, they have cut the funding. So we have to ensure that these organizations get sustainable funding. Now, as far as India's role with the multilateral institutions is concerned, how has been India's policy? Has India behaved the way USA is behaving right now, or we have behaved in a way liberal or a better way? That's one question we need to think of. So, you see, India has been a very good supporter of multilateralism till now, and our foreign policy is also aligned towards multilateralism. For example, India is the largest UN peacekeeping troop contributor in the entire world. So, more than 2 lakh troops we have contributed till now. No other country could do this. Then, as far as climate change is concerned, India is leading this. So, for example, we started this International Solar Alliance. Right now, more than 110 countries are part of it. We have also taken a target called net zero target for the year 2070. We said that we're going to reduce our carbon emission. Then India has gone for this vaccine diplomacy, especially at the time of this pandemic crisis. And we have been champion of democratic multilateralism. So we are always there taking the charge or leading the charge, wherein we say that there should be multilateralism, but it should be democratic. That means every country should get the representation. There should not be power politics at multilateral institutions, but there should be cooperation, peaceful cooperation with the principle of equality taken into account. So we are champion of it. And if you see, when this G20 summit took place in India in the year 2023, India brought the African membership as part of G20. That shows that India respects that inclusive nature. Okay, and India is active in BRICS, SEO, IPSA. All this shows that India supports multilateralism. India is part of it. So this is all about this article of multilateralism. I hope you have got the clarity on this topic now. Okay, now let's move ahead with the next article. Now this article, this talks about Manipur, and this talks specifically about AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act. You should know about this act. It's very important for your internal security. Okay, so look at this previous year question asked in the year 2015. I'll give you few seconds, 10 seconds. Please read this question. Okay, please read. Done? So by reading this, you will get an idea about why we are talking about this particular question, because this is also talking about Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Okay. So the name Armed Forces Special Powers Act, that means we are giving some special powers, some extra additional special powers to the armed forces. So let's say we are talking about army. So we are giving some extra power to the army. So we'll understand what kind of power we are giving, what's exactly happening, why this act came into picture. So if you remember, in the year 1942, we saw one movement named as Quit India movement. Right? Now that was the last movement seen in India, after which the British Empire got completely destroyed from India. Now that was one of the worst movement from Britishers' perspective. Now at that time, British government decided that they have to curb this movement, and for that, the government at that time, they brought an ordinance. They brought an ordinance in the form of Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And they gave some special powers to the military personnel so that they can handle this situation, so that they can bring in law and order in the country, because this law and order was completely hampered, has got completely disturbed because of this Quit India movement, right? So this was brought in the year 1942. Now when this was brought in, and the law gave way more powers, like for example, any officer could detain anybody, they could arrest anyone, they could kill anyone. Such heavy powers, such dangerous powers were given. So Indian leaders did not like this. At that time, many Indian leaders, they said that when we will become independent, we will not have any such draconian or black act in India. But interestingly, after independence, we brought the same act. We brought the same act in the year 1958. The same act, Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Why? Because after independence, India was facing many challenges at many areas, especially when we talk about our northeastern part. There, India was facing insurgency, lot of instability was there, and that's the reason India brought this particular act. Okay, and we gave some extra powers to our armed forces. Now, what is the expectation? When in an area, let's say you talk about Manipur or Arunachal Pradesh, now you can imagine the situation in Manipur, whatever is happening. So there is instability. At this moment, if you see the local police over there, or the police, overall police department is not in a position to handle this crisis, or they are not in a position to bring law and order. So what we are saying, whenever the civilian government or the civilian force is not in a position to bring in law and order or handle the situation, they can take the help of armed forces. That is the military. You can take the help from military. And that is being done under this Armed Forces Special Powers Act. So anyway, if you look at police, police is under the Ministry of Home Affairs. So all this AFSPA is administered under Ministry of Home Affairs. Clear? So what this Ministry of Home Affairs will do, they will declare a particular area as disturbed area. So let's say they decided that in Manipur, one area they decided that it's a disturbed area. So if it is a disturbed area, then they can send in some military personnel, some groups of military with some extra powers given to them, and they can go and bring in law and order. They can make the situation peaceful. That's the reason they have this AFSPA. Now at this moment, this AFSPA is applicable in few parts of the country. For example, in Jammu and Kashmir, Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, then in Assam, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland. These are the states. It's not like entire state is having this ASPA clause or is disturbed. Some regions, so it is under your this Ministry of Home Affairs. They can decide whether they want to declare one area, one particular district, one taluka, or the entire state as disturbed. That's up to them. Okay. Now see the key provisions given under AFSPA. If you look at the section number 3 of this AFSPA, it says disturbed area declaration will be done by central government, that is the Ministry of Home Affairs, or governor of the state, or the administrator of union territory. So this is something important factual part for your prelims. Then if you look at section number 4, now this is very important. What kind of special powers we have given? Please read this very much carefully. First of all, these personals, army personals, they can search without warrant. They don't need any warrant. They can come to you, they can say, we want to search, we want to check your entire home, or let's say your vehicle, anything. They can arrest you without warrant. So suddenly they'll come to your home and they'll arrest you. No warrant, no permissions, nothing. They can go for destruction of your property. Let's say you're having something, you have some kind of property, or let's say some materials are present with you, they can destroy that, because they might consider that those materials or those things are used as weapons or something. So they might go for destruction of your property. They can use their arms and weapons, and more importantly, they can even fire at you. So they can take a gun and just shoot you. Even if you die, it doesn't matter, because that army personnel has got the power, that immunity, that even if he kills you, nobody is going to say anything to them, not even the court of law. So this Armed Forces Special Powers Act is giving such a special powers, which includes even the power to kill a person if required. Why this extra additional or this dangerous power is given? So that some law and order situation is brought in. So this is how we see AFSPA. Very important. And those army professionals, they are getting some protection from any kind of prosecution in the court. Okay. Now, obviously, many people will not like such a law, because that goes directly against the Article 21 of the Constitution, right to life. So many groups, they reached out to the Supreme Court. After that, we saw this case, Naga People's Movement versus Union of India 1998. Now in this case, Supreme Court upheld AFSPA. Supreme Court said that when the situation is so worse that it's very difficult for the civilian government to handle the situation, we have to bring in military to bring the situation under control. And for military to operate correctly or efficiently, they have to be given such extra powers or such special powers. So they upheld it. But it's not like government can use this provision at any point of time whimsically. No. Supreme Court gave some guidelines also. Supreme Court said, first of all, you have to periodically review whatever area you have already declared as disturbed area. So you have to check it time and again. You have to check whether it should be disturbed area, or you should remove that disturbed area declaration. You should periodically review. So it's not like you have decided today, so for next 10 years, 15 years, it will remain disturbed area. No. Second, minimal force should be used. So these are the people of your own country, so you should not use the force the way you use in a war. Okay, so minimal force should be used. And third, whenever you're going ahead with such action, take the state government into confidence. Go for some consultation with the state government first and then go for such actions. Otherwise, there will be a tussle between center and the state. Okay, so these are the guidelines given by Supreme Court. Now, there are some committees which have given some recommendations regarding Armed Forces Special Powers Act. One is this Jeevan Reddy Committee. They said you should repeal, you should completely cancel out this Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And if you want to give the important or major powers to the armed forces, then integrate that into this UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. You add those provisions over here. One more thing that you can do is you can bring in grievance redressal mechanism. Let's say those military officials are misusing this act. They are taking anyone, they are coming up with anyone and killing anybody. At least you should have some grievance redressal mechanism wherein victims can reach out to the court of law or at least authorities. Something should be there. Then we have this second ARC report. In 2007, second ARC said that we should repeal Armed Forces Special Powers Act. We should remove it and we should have some humane approach to the insurgency. Even if insurgency is there, that doesn't mean you should kill everyone. Show some humane nature, humane approach. And then we have Santosh Hegde Commission of year 2013. They said instead of repealing this AFSPA completely, do one thing. Review, go for review every 6 months. Review your declaration, review your AFSPA, and most importantly, whether we need AFSPA or not, review that also. And go for more accountability and more transparency so that the law or the clauses will not be misused at the local level. Clear? So this is all about your Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Good article? Very good article. Now, we're heading towards the third article of the day. Now, this one is talking about inflation and migration. So, there's a report by State Bank of India. They have done some research and they are saying many people from poor states, they are reaching out to the southern India because southern Indian states are very much well off. They are relatively more developed, they have better economic conditions, you will find job opportunities available in the southern states, and that's the reason many people from the regions such as the what we call northern belt or the eastern belt, they are coming to the southern part. Now because of this migration movement of people, we are observing inflation in the southern states. Now, this is very important for us to understand the entire economy or economic structures in India. So, this topic is important for prelims as well as mains GS paper 3 Indian economy. You can read this previous year question asked in the year 2015. I'll give you 5-6 seconds. Please read. Done? Now, this question talks about labor migration within and outside India. So, migration remains an important topic for us. So, we said this SBI report has come. Now look at this, what this report is specifically saying. Southern states, we are observing their high inflation continuously, especially in terms of vegetables, cereals, pulses, etc. And we are observing labor migration, people coming from other areas to these southern states. Now what is exactly happening? So you're talking about the southern states. So let's say here we have Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So we are seeing many people or the laborers, they are coming to these states. So there was already some population living over here, some additional population is coming over here. So the population has increased, more people are living in the same area. When more people are living, everyone requires something. Let's say some food is required, some housing is required, transportation is required, health facility is required. Now already whatever resources were present over here, they were being used by the people living in southern India. But because the migration is taking place, more people are coming here. So the demand for these resources has got increased. Obviously, let's say there were only 1 ton of tomato available in southern India, and there were 10 lakh, not 10 lakh, let's say 2 crore people living in southern India. So they were going to buy 1 ton of tomatoes. Now instead of 2 crore, there are 4 crore people. All are going for the same number of tomatoes because number of resources are not increasing. They are anyway in a stable form. So what will happen is the demand for resources has got increased. And because demand has got increased, I'm saying the demand is got increased a lot and the supply was as it is. It has not increased at all. Supply is same, demand has got increased. So what will happen as a result of all of this, you will see that price of goods will increase. So if one person is buying tomato, the price is 10 kilo. If 10 people came and they are asking for the same tomato, the shopkeeper will say, I'm not going to sell it at that price. I'm going to increase the price. So this is how you will see inflation taking place as a result of this migration. So the data also shows that Kerala has the highest inflation, 7.3%. And yeah, here you can see very clearly. India level or average inflation level you'll see as 3.6%. But if you see Kerala, it seems 7.3%. Okay. Now, this would be one-sided view if we are just looking at this inflation from the perspective of migration. Certainly, this migration is one reason. But apart from migration, you have to think about this angle wherein purchasing power has also some role to in increasing or amplifying this inflation. See, if you look at southern India, the purchasing power of people is relatively very high as compared to the northern India or eastern part of the India. So because of this, also we say inflation is increasing. Purchasing power is more, then you have more demand also. This is also leading to this. Then higher state level taxes. Now this is very important. If you go to southern India, you will see the sales tax and all many other taxes, they are more in number, and that's the reason also we observe the prices of goods increasing. Let's say the fuel tax. If the fuel tax is more, transportation cost will increase. If transportation cost increases, then all the products, their prices will increase. Similarly for liquor duties or vehicle or flat registration charges, etc. And then the core problem remains this urban congestion and resource issue, resource stress. Because the resources are less, that's the reason price is increasing. And there is this urban congestion. Cities are expanding, but there is a limit. There's a limit beyond which it is not possible. You cannot provide infrastructure for everyone beyond a certain limit. So that overcrowding, over urbanization is taking place. All these things are happening, leading to housing shortage, water scarcity, power overload, etc. etc. And as a result, again, the prices increase if you are getting some kind of service. Okay, done with this. Now we are heading towards the fourth article. Now, what's this article all about? We said this article is about Competition Commission of India. So you can read this previous year question related to National Green Tribunal. Okay, I'll give you 5 seconds. Please read so that you can get an idea of the relevance of the topics we are studying, why we are studying, whether such questions are asked in the paper or not. Okay, so let's start with this story. What's exactly happening? So we have a company called Meta, Google, and we have so many other companies who are running good business in the digital infrastructures or digital or social medias, etc. Now many times we have observed these companies, because they have access to the data, they misuse all these things and they go against the principle of competition. Now there is a fair competition which is acceptable to everyone, the country, that if there are 10 companies, they should compete with each other. Everyone is having access to resources, the public resources, they can use it and go for it. But sometimes what companies do, because one company is having access to the data, all the rest of the companies, they don't have the access. This one country will dominate and misuse and not let any other company compete, and this is what we call as anti-competitive practice. And against this anti-competitive practice, we have some institutions which take some actions. If they find that there is one company or two companies or some companies who are misusing stuffs and they are reducing competition, they are trying to destroy the competition and monopolize everything, in that case, government will take some actions and try to bring in level playing field for everyone. Okay, so in the year 2024 November, we have Competition Commission of India who fined Meta with 213 crore rupees of fine. So what Meta had done, that they brought a new policy for WhatsApp users. They said that they're going to share their data of WhatsApp with Instagram and with their Facebook. All these are under Meta company. All these are subsidiaries of this Meta company. So they said that if you accept this policy, then accept it and you can use WhatsApp. If you don't accept it, then you cannot use WhatsApp. You have to leave it. Now, this is where this Competition Commission of India said, you're doing something wrong. This is anti-competitive thing, because this is your approach, take it or leave it approach. This is not acceptable. This you're doing because you have access to data, you have control over resources. That's the reason you're trying to do this thing, and this is abuse of dominant position. Okay. Now in India, we have this Competition Act 2002. Already we had this Competition Act 2002. But that was brought in the year 2002. Right now we are observing this social media gaining traction. It has got developed, many new problems are coming up. But the time this Competition Act 2002 was brought in, at that time we were looking at our traditional industries. So there also many companies tried to monopolize everything. So to control this thing, government brought Competition Act. Even the Competition Commission of India is working under this, or they are getting the powers from this act specifically. Now, because the social media, the digital media is evolving, the provisions related to data driven monopolies are not mentioned in this particular act. Okay, that I have control over data, that's why I'm dominant over here. Now, the data related aspects are not mentioned in this act. And when we look at different acts like this Digital Personal Data Protection Act or any other act, we see some gaps. And that's the reason we are saying we have to bring all these clauses under this act and we have to bring in some collaboration. So we need to amend this Competition Act. First of all, to include data monopolization, right? If some companies are monopolizing data, taking control over data, then that aspect should also be part of this Competition Act, and the government agencies should have power to ensure that such monopolization or dominance does not take place. Now we can look for some global best practices as a reference. For example, this Digital Markets Act or this GDPR in Europe. These are good examples for us to learn how we can bring in such systems. Okay. So as a way forward, first of all, redefine market dominance, which includes this data control aspect. Then interoperability, data sharing. So right now, if Facebook is having control over data, they are not going to share that data with any other one. Let's say you want to go for new application and you don't want to use WhatsApp, but you will not do that because all the data stored on WhatsApp, they are not allowing it to be shared with other app or interoperable with other app or transfer to other app. They're not allowing that, because of which you will be stuck in over here. All these problems will be there. So considering all these aspects, and also when you look at these acts also, this Digital Personal Data Protection Act and this Competition Act, there is some authority over here who is taking actions under this act. There is an agency who is working under this act. They do not know what is going on. They are not having any coordination. They are taking actions on their own. They are taking actions on their own. So there is need of some cooperation among these agencies. That is very important. Okay. Now some facts for prelims. Competition Commission of India. It was established in the year 2009 under this act. It replaced an earlier act called MRTP Act 1969, and this was said by Raghavan Committee that you should replace it. That's why they did. Structure is there will be one chairperson and 6 members who are government appointed. Now this body is a quasi judicial body. Okay, so they work somewhat like court, but they are an executive agency. So they are advising government on competition issues. They are adjudicating cases wherever there is this competition related issues are coming up. They'll take up those cases. Until now, 1274 antitrust cases have been filed with 89% disposal rate. So we can say this Competition Commission of India is working really good. Okay, then it prohibits anti-competitive agreements, abuse dominant position, etc. One important thing for us is this appellate body. In case you did not like the decision given or made by Competition Commission of India, you can reach out to NCLAT for the appeal. So that appeal will be here. Then similarly, we have this Digital Personal Data Protection Act so that we can protect our data and ensure accountability of these companies, larger companies. This act specifically talks about right to data protection, that we users should have data protection right. So we will decide if you don't want your data to be stored by a particular company like Facebook, you can ask them to remove that data, delete it, modify it. So that will be done. Data processing and consent. If they are taking your data, using it for some other cause, they have to take your consent, your permission. Then data localization. For the sensitive data, personal data, very important data, government can ask for data localization. That means you have to store a copy over here in India. Then for regulatory regulations, we have this Data Protection Board of India who is going to take actions related to this. Data breach notifications, mandatory disclosures should be made by companies to individuals as well as this board in case any data breach has taken place. And penalties will be there if you are not complying with it. So all these things are important for prelims. Now the last article of the day, this one is related to reciprocal tariff from United States of America on India. Now we had already covered this article on 6th of March over here, USA's reciprocal tariff on India. So you'll get the links in the description box, in the comment box. Just go for those links. You can open up this daily news analysis and watch this video. Okay. Now the time for practice questions. Question on multilateralism. Please read the question. I'll give you 5 seconds. Read and think about it. 10 seconds I'll give you. Think about it. Done? So multilateralism is facing increasing challenges in the contemporary world order. Examine the reasons behind the rise of unilateralism. So reasons they are asking, and discuss its implications. Second thing. And third, suggest measures. So measures they are asking. So 3 dimensions should be part of your answer. Now see, initially you can directly introduce what is this multilateralism, or you can show the context that it is facing some problems at this moment. You can give examples. Now tell them the reasons why it is happening. We have discussed this: populist nationalism, power shift, all these things are happening. What will be the implications? Discuss that. And finally, way forward. So those reform, balanced representation that is required, whatever this crisis response mechanism is required, financial sustainability is required, all these things you can mention. Okay. Now look at this question, which was part of yesterday's DNA. So Digital Personal Data Protection Act, The act establishes regulatory authority for compliance and grievance redressal. Okay. Manage the localization of all categories. No, all is not correct. So if all is wrong, why? Because we just talk about sensitive personal data, not all data to be localized. Second is wrong. 1 and 3, B is the right answer. Okay. Third is also right. Then consider the following statements regarding UN CAT. Now this was adopted in 1984, came into force in 1987 to prevent torture or the cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment globally. That's true. This Article 3 prohibits extradition if there is a substantial risk of torture in the receiving country. That is also correct. India has ratified both UN CAT and optional protocol. Now that's not correct. This UN CAT, India has signed but not ratified. Ratification means you have to bring in a law in India's parliament. That we haven't done. And this optional protocol we haven't signed also. Okay, so third statement is wrong. 1 and 2, A is the right answer. That unmanned aerial vehicle used by Indian Armed Forces. Rustam 2 is indigenous UAV developed by DRDO capable of endurance for 24 hours. True. Heron UAV used by Indian Armed Forces has been developed domestically by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. No, this one was brought from Israel. So second statement is wrong. So as soon as you make second wrong, you reach to C 1 and 3. Now, homework for all of you. The questions from today's daily news analysis articles. You can read the questions. I'm gonna show you on the screen. There will be a link in the description box. You can directly reach out to our website and attempt these questions. I request you to do that. Okay. So this is question number 1 on Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Question number 2 on Competition Commission of India. Answers will be provided to you tomorrow. Okay. And if you want answers today, just go for that website link. And question number 3 on this SBI report, that inflation migration nexus. So these are all the questions for today. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you so much for joining.